All right, folks, we are going to jump in and get started and have some fun for the latter part of a Thursday. So, welcome for those joining Thursday late afternoon, and welcome those who happen to be mid afternoon in the West Coast or Central Time. And we're gonna have a little fun. All right, so we're gonna be welcome to my nuts, bolts, and beers workshop, the first one of a few this year that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to run these monthly and focus on a technology and get the technology up and running. No scripts, no practice, no nothing. Just have fun doing it and happen to drink a beer. So cheers to those who are out there tonight. All right, so let's jump in and talk about Igil and some of the newer updates. But for those who don't know me, my name is Pete Downing. I'm the CMTO of XenTegra, and I come to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am originally from Boston. So for those who have known me for a while, know that I lived in Boston and I recently moved here. So here I am. And I'm now based in Charlotte, and loving it and not missing the snow one bit. Although I hear the snow is few and far between up north right now. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. You can read my bio. I don't think I need to harp on it. All right, so we are in a Zoom meeting. And the great thing about Zoom that I like is the Q&A dialogue. The Q&A dialogue allows you to ask questions. You can also send me messages. And if you want to ask a question, just hit the hand raise button and I can make you live. So again, questions are encouraged. And I definitely recommend taking advantage of the Q&A because it does get recorded. All right, so let's talk about the agenda for today. We're going to keep it simple, but we're also going to keep it fun. We are going to talk about the latest and greatest update from Igil and computing. And I'm going to bring up the brand new Raspberry Pi device that I have sitting next to me here. I'm going to show it in a little bit, so bear with me. I'll give some quick updates on XenTegra, and then finally we'll have a little fun configuring and trying to get the new Pi up and running. And as we go through, I'll take question and answer and work with the audience. So again, questions are definitely preferred and recommended. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to hit the hand raise button, the Q&A dialogue, and or pop me a chat if you don't want to even do that. So there's a lot of different ways to get my attention, and I do pay attention to all dialogues, and I'll try not to miss your question. All right, so today I personally am drinking a local brew here called Noda Brewing Company. So I'm drinking their lager. So I'm a lager guy and tend to stick with those just because that's what I like. I can't do IPAs. And anyway, so that's my drink of choice. And hopefully everybody on the call has their drink of choice. And if you want to share what you're drinking, feel free. All right, check out events.XenTegra.com. If you are based locally here, we are doing a cool little event here potentially next month, so keep an eye out for that. But tomorrow, if you have time, there are seats available 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're going to be doing a workshop with Nutanix. So Harvey Green and Merritt Dombos is going to be running this awesome workshop. And they're going to be includes hands-on labs, overview on Nutanix, etc. So if you have time, I definitely recommend it. There are spots available. I think it's limited to 20 people. And we always go about +5 just in case because people don't show up. So definitely check that out. Also, check out podcast.XenTegra.com. The site's been resurfaced, and Igil is one of those podcasts. We just launched the podcast this week, so check out the different podcasts. They are available on all the mediums possibly out there. I try to get them all out there. The only one that's hard to get on, and it takes a while, is Pandora. So I try to get them on Pandora. It usually takes about 6 weeks to 2 months. iHeartRadio is the big one, so you can find them there as well. Webinars.XenTegra.com. Check those out. We got our weekly webinar Wednesdays and our bi-weekly bits and bytes. So check out those next week. Coincidentally, I actually have Jed Ayers coming on to join me on my webinar Wednesdays, and I'm trying to get another guest to come on with him. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to be talking about all the cool things that Igil's doing over the next year, but also more importantly, over the next month. And I'll share one other cool update later on today. Bronco.XenTegra.com. I will talk about that in a little bit, so bear with me, but some of you may already know what this is. And yes, I am giving away this month to one lucky person across all the events, either an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy. And then I have some other cool swag I'll be doling out to folks in the audience over the last month. All right, so let's have a little fun and get the audience involved. And the first question is just to get you guys warmed up and to see who's out there and what my audience looks like. So is this your first XenTegra event / workshop? And I am the day-to-day administrator, decision maker, combination of the both. And if you can take a minute to answer the polls, it helps me understand my audience a little more. These polls are completely anonymous. I can't see who's answering it, and no data is shared. And I just want to give shout outs to a couple folks. So shout out to Bill Sutton for jumping on. If you want, I can pull you in as a panelist. David Prowse, shout out to you, buddy. And Janice, shout out to you. So thanks for jumping on, folks. And Terry, hey, shout out to you, buddy. All right, last call for clicks. And going once, twice, and done. All right, so we got a lot of new folks on, so welcome. Glad you guys could join us. Hopefully you find today enjoyable. And for those returning, welcome back. And hope you guys enjoy today's content. And then, I try to cover the gamut. So today's going to be in the weeds a little bit, but I always try to stick to the high level too, to talk about strategy and the why. So don't worry, I'm going to hit everything today. All right, let's talk about Citrix and your end user compute. Just curiosity. I mean, what's your environment look like? Your enterprise primarily uses the following end user compute product today. So pick your primary. I get that, you might run 2 or 1, but just pick your primary. Which hypervisor do you primarily use? What is your Citrix workspace / cloud status? And then finally, Citrix Cloud is, and just a fun little question that I always like to ask just to see what people think. Helps Citrix understand if their marketing is any good. All right, so I'll give a couple more seconds. Going once, going twice. Not a lot of people answering today. I'll take a sip. All right, last call for clicks. And done. All right, so we got a lot of Citrix folks in the room. So awesome. One RDS folks, couple nuns. Interesting. Everybody said ESXi, vSphere, vCenter. Most of you said, wow, a lot of you are actually doing end-to-end with Citrix Cloud Workspace. Pretty cool. But a lower end of still considering it, or why should I move? And then, a lot of folks said platform as a service, and I tend to agree with that answer. All right, final round of polls. Let's have a little fun here. As far as Azure AD, what is your enterprise using today? Is it cloud only or hybrid? As far as your infrastructure as a service, what platform are you using today? Your preferred one. Obviously, you could be using more than one. I get it. M365, what's your kind of deployment look like? And then remote work, what's going on in that front? And then finally, your thin device strategy, what does it look like on that front? And again, this is the one I'll probably pay attention to because curious to see how many IGEL customers there are. All right, last call for clicks, going once, twice, and final call. All right, so a lot of folks doing Azure AD, hybrid. That's awesome because, again, that enables a lot more down the road and gives you a lot of different options when it comes to multi-factor authentication, tying to various products in the ecosystem. And it also makes adopting WVD a lot easier as well. Azure is always the preferred platform, but AWS is always a close second. There is a few Google Cloud Platform people out there. That's pretty awesome. M365, a lot of folks with Exchange Online today. So that's usually the other way. It's usually even with the first option, but it's pretty cool to see that. Very cloud friendly audience, it seems. And then a lot of folks doing remote work. I usually get one no, but it all depends on the day, I guess. And then finally, I'm seeing 5 IGEL customers in the audience today. Awesome. Glad you guys like IGEL. And then for those who aren't IGEL customers, you're in the right place. And hopefully we can convince you to consider IGEL in the future. All right. So that's my polls for today and tonight. And let's have a little fun now and dive in. So, if you're not following XenTegra, you can connect with me, IGEL, etc. on social media. Please do. I'd say IGEL they have an awesome social media presence, and as do we. And definitely give us a follow. Just as a quick note, I am recording and live streaming this, so I will expose this up to YouTube at some point. But for right now, it's being live streamed. So if you have any friends that want to come in and watch, feel free. You can copy the link and send it to them. Who is XenTegra? Well, really quick, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because you know what? I don't want to get bogged down in a PowerPoint today. So if you don't know who we are, XenTegra is a value-added reseller and top partner of IGEL as well as Citrix and other key vendors in the space. And Andy, our founder and CEO, founded XenTegra on 2 core premises. One, he wanted to enable the community and be very focused on how do you get more out of your products, and 2, becoming a true partner with the various partners we work with. So we work very hard on these 2, missions, if you will. And I really love working for XenTegra and enjoy what I do. As far as what we do, well, we're a solutions focused company. Yeah, I can sell you IGEL and I can sell you Citrix, but let's face it, without the 2 together, it's not a solution. So we focus on building the solution, and behind that, we have great services. And yes, I can sell you the various products within the stack. Now, if you're already working with a partner, okay, cool. We can still come in and be your service provider, your service partner, and build the solution. But I live by one core premise, and that premise is simple. We, IT, enable our users so they can be successful. So XenTegra enables IT so end users can be successful. Because let's face it, if our end users aren't successful and they can't do their job and they're not happy, then our projects fail. The products fail. It gives the products a bad name. So making sure our end users is happy is something that I live by and believe in every day. So check out partners.xentegra.com and you can see some of our key partners: Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, IGEL, and Nutanix. Yes, we are a very cloud heavy and end user compute heavy company, but we focus on the whole stack. All right. I had a conversation with a customer today, and yeah, we focus on end user compute and cloud compute, but part of that is understanding the infrastructure as well. So, and the networking and the security. So we do everything, but we are very focused on end user compute and cloud computing and the networking and security that goes alongside that. Here's a great snippet of our customer base. You can see a lot of great clients. We love our customers. If you're a customer, thank you. We appreciate your business and love working with you guys. Now, bronco.xentegra.com. You can get into this drawing a couple different ways. The first way is if you go through a full POC of IGEL. Now, if you're an IGEL customer, I'll try to figure out another way to get you into the Bronco campaign. But if you go through the full POC of IGEL, that will Bronco drawing. Now, the other thing I'm willing to offer up is if you try out a Raspberry Pi device end to end, if you're a current customer, I will get you into the Bronco drawing. All right. So if you want to follow up and dig deeper on IGEL, reach out and let me know. And if you need help getting a device, reach out and let me know. We're working on something really cool. So stay tuned. And David, I know you already have your device, so I'll come up with something cool for you. All right. And another way you can get in is, and I call this a great way to get to understand, how does XenTegra work and what do we do? You can do free micro assessments and really understand how we work, what we do, why we do it. All right. And we do a SWOT analysis of your environment, and we give you a nice anecdote to be able to follow up on and say, all right, I need to do this or I need to do that. It's not just like, hey, here's what you need to do and give you a list. No, Randy and Harvey come in, they do a 4 to 8 hour assessment of your environment for free. And they give you an hour synopsis of what they found and hand you a nice Excel document with all the findings. So definitely recommend this if you're looking at, do I need improvements in my environment, etc. And it's another great way to get into the Bronco drawing. And it's a nice, easy way to understand how we work and if you could work with XenTegra. And then the final way is staffing.xentegra.com. Yes, we do have a staffing arm of our business, and we do try to find you great help. So we staff all your IT needs, everything from temp to hire to staff augmentation to full-time hires. So let us know if you need help on that front. All right, so as you sit here today, first off, ask questions. Second, if you see anything you want to dig deeper on, just reach out and I'll be more than willing to hop on a call and dig in deeper. And third, if I talk about a product and you want to get more information, just reach out. All right. Again, I encourage question and answer all day, and keep plugging them into the Q&A dialogue. Someone asked about a barbecue restaurant gift cards. Hey, I might do one better. Those who know me, I'm a big barbecue guy, and I love cooking barbecue. I might even show you how to cook barbecue if you're into briskets and all that. I'll give lessons at some point. So, but anyway, ask your questions, and I'll keep an eye on the Q&A dialogue. So that's a little bit about XenTegra. And if you have any further questions on us, just ask or pop me an email. All right, so let's talk about Igil. All right, and we're gonna do a little tee up here because I want to talk about a couple key things that have been announced since some of you may have seen Igil since before the holidays. Now, if you remember, I did a webinar right before Christmas, and we had Carl and Chris Feeney on and a couple other key guests, Doug Brown, and we covered a lot of great stuff. And we hinted at something really cool that was going to happen this month, and we couldn't say it. And, unfortunately, that's what NDAs are for. And I'm really excited because I'm happy that we finally have this update. But let's talk about why Igil. So if you're not an Igil shop and you're still running Windows on the endpoint, you really need to ask yourself why. I mean, why do you need Windows today on your endpoints, especially for, users who, are only using Citrix, to get to a desktop, or Citrix to get to their apps, or if you're a SaaS-based company and you're doing all SaaS-based applications, or you're a healthcare company and you're connecting to a Cerner backend or an Epic backend, why do you need Windows on the desktop? And so let's just have a little history lesson here on Windows. This was updated on the 22nd. It might be a little different, but I left it be for today just because I can only update it so many times in a couple months. But I did update it on the 22nd, and you can see a lot of different builds here. But there have been 11 versions of Windows 10 since its inception on July 29th, 2015. 11 versions. And I was in IT. And I know you all probably want to pull your hair out some months when they come out with updates. So it's just a hard product to manage in the enterprise. But then you throw it on top of that, throw some stats on top of that. There's been 586 builds of Windows 10 to date. Okay. And this might have gone up a little since the last time I updated this slide. But the reality here is, how do you manage this day in and day out in the enterprise? Windows 10 really belongs in the data center or on power users' desktops, and that's about it. Even there, you could argue use cases for Citrix and their other friendly competitors in the space. But more importantly, every update you get, it's disruptive to the end users. It's disruptive to the IT department. It's another layer of management, and it really just becomes very complex, especially now that our devices are dispersed. So we need to come up with a solution to that. And the reality is Linux is the answer. And what better than Igil OS? But we already, we have another version, the second half of 2020 release, and this just keeps going and going and going. And it's going to be interesting to see what Microsoft does moving forward. If they keep doing these big rock releases every year or twice a year, or do they go to once a year and just do releases in between? Who knows? They had a dream to be like Apple, and I would say they're far from it still. So the question is why? So when you sit here today, ask yourself why. Why do I need Windows on the endpoint? Why do I have Windows at the endpoint? Why do I have Windows as a thin OS at the endpoint? It's slow, it's clunky, it's another layer of management. Why? So ask yourself why as you sit here today, and Barney's going to ask you to ask yourself why as well. So let's talk about the Edge OS. Now, I'll be the first one to say that IGEL is not a hardware company. They are a software company. I had a conversation with a customer today about this, and they said, "Well, hey Pete, how come you run LG devices and Lenovo devices in your office?" And I said, "Well, because IGEL is not a hardware company. They don't care who you run on, as long as you're happy and you like what you're provisioning it on." So IGEL is the first one to say, "Hey, work with our partners. Yeah, we happen to sell great hardware, but you can also work with our partners." So focus on the OS, not the hardware. And the great thing about the OS is it plugs into any cloud. All right. And I mean that, any cloud. All right. And I'll show you some of the profile configurations in a little bit. So bear with me. But the ability to dumb down an endpoint so a user can just use it is key. It creates a user experience that is so simple and so secure that there's no complaining. And you know that it's controlled. And that's the key. So the IGEL OS is key to all this story. This whole story is all about the IGEL OS, and that's what we're going to focus on today. But there's other flavors that you can focus on. So yes, I've done a conversion workshop. If you haven't done that, I do it every month. I do a conversion workshop. I show you how to convert devices. The middle, the UD Pocket. So yes, I can take this USB key right here and plug this into any endpoint and temporarily convert something to an IGEL OS. And then finally, yes, they sell their own devices, and we're going to feature one in a second. So bear with me. The direct install, and I'll give credit, Mr. Carl Gersh came up with this term, but the direct install, that's taking any device, any x86 device, and converting it to an IGEL OS device. So that means you can convert, I can convert my laptop that's sitting here next to me. I can convert the little stick behind me that's sitting behind me. I can convert a Wise 3040 or a 5070. I can convert a HP 530 or a 530, right? So I can convert any device as long as it's on the HCL, and most of the time as long as it's x86. So that's option A. And yes, you can use methods like Pixie. You can use methods like SCCM, and you can use methods like direct install, walking around and plugging in a USB key and doing it. They also have the OSC tool, which is a Windows-based tool. You can take a Windows device, reboot it, and have it automatically change over to an IGEL device. If you're interested, I got a recording of a demo I did last year. Then they got the UD Pocket. The UD Pocket is a USB-based device. Now, does anybody notice something wrong with this picture? And if you're thinking it, it's okay to say it. But yes, IGEL has the new UD Pocket 2. It's coming out hopefully in the next couple months. Obviously, we all know procurement is kind of an issue right now, so it's not IGEL's fault. But they finally released the UD Pocket 2, which comes with a Type-C and regular USB port, which makes it very versatile, and it can now plug it into Type-C, which I love. I've been asking for this since day one. So someone asked about if they live in New Zealand, if they want to win, if they can win the Bronco. David, I'll make a deal with you. You tell Carl that if he flies me to Australia and New Zealand, I'll personally bring him the Ford Bronco. Next up is the hardware, and it's always, IGEL has the UD range. I'll call it the UDX, right? And they have varying degrees of hardware options: the UD2, the UD3, the UD6, the UD7. Now, what's really cool about this line is down below you can see 5 years with registration, warranty, 5-year warranty, not bad. UD2 is great if you got a static desk and you just got to plug it in and go, right? No Wi-Fi, plugs directly into the internet, and great little device. The UD3 is a great all-around dual monitor device, and the UD7 is being revamped, so keep an eye out for that. Now, you're probably going, well, what about this Raspberry Pi? Well, before we get to that, check out the IGEL Ready Partners Program, all right? And there's 3 key vendors that I personally like in this program. There's Lenovo, there's the LG line, and then there's ClearCube. Those are my personal 3 favorites. Lenovo is a great partner, and they have great devices, as we all know. Nothing beats the ThinkPads back in the day, or the X1 Carbon, if you guys remember that. But Lenovo is a great line. LG makes the great all-in-one. They got a 28-inch monitor version and a 32-inch curved monitor version. So you got to check those out. And then finally, ClearCube makes a great array of devices. They make everything from, low-cost Intel NUCs based devices to, high-end, TPM chip secure devices for government. So if you're in the gov sector, ClearCube is a great option. And in general, ClearCube is a great option. So my 3 personal favorites are these 3 on the screen. They're all IGEL ready partners, and you can go and see which hardware has been certified. But more importantly, we got this little baby. And so here we go. We got the IGEL and N Computing, and I'm calling it the UD Pi for now. And if they take that, I expect royalties. And it's coming soon. So yes, certain people can get them. And and I'm working on getting a few for a few lucky people. But you can see here is my new IGEL Raspberry Pi based device built by N Computing, ARM based. And this is the newest line that IGEL has offered. And I'm very excited about this because some of the IGEL folks who I work with will, and I'm waiting for one person to pull in, but they'll tell you that I've been asking for this for since I've been around IGEL, but since, the Raspberry Pi became a thing and Chris Fleck started demoing it at Citrix. So I'm excited about this. And this is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on getting this little guy up and running. I'm going to show you some cool things. Now, little tip here. I pulled this out of the box. I haven't configured it. It's out of the box. I haven't done anything. So nothing is scripted today. And I did get a little forewarning from my friend Jeff Kahlberg over at IGEL. He said, just keep an eye out for this. And I said, okay, cool. And I said, I'm still going to live on the edge, and we're going to power this on from scratch and see how it operates. All right. And David, you can keep me honest here. All right. And so that's our device, and we're going to get this up and running in a second. So bear with me. I'm excited, and we'll work on that in a few seconds. And then finally, the UMS. So behind all this is the awesome Universal Management Suite. And so if you don't know what this is, I'm going to go through this end to end today, and we're going to see the power of the UMS and what you can do with it, and how you can centrally manage all your IGEL based devices. And then finally, I always get the question around, hey, Pete, what if I got remote users? Or, hey, I want to deploy this awesome UD Pocket, but my users are at home. What gives? And so IGEL has the IGEL Cloud Gateway, which allows you to, manage and deal with, dispersed devices. So they might not be in the walls of your network, and you need to be able to manage them, shadow them securely, and allow for check-in and, be able to register to the management server from anywhere. And this is a great option. So if you think about it, right, users who work from home on a laptop that's uncontrolled or a desktop that's uncontrolled, yeah, you can't control the ISP. I get that, right? But if you could control the experience and guarantee a level of experience from an operating environment, that's pretty powerful. So you got to check this out. And if you haven't, let me know. Now, one of the things I will promise is anybody who attends today and stays till the end, I will send you all a UD Pocket. I already have them in queue, and I'm getting them shipped hopefully soon. And as soon as I get them, they'll be dropped in the mail to anybody who attends today in the US and Canada. I can't ship to Europe and Australia, unfortunately. All right, so that's a little bit on a little overview on updates from IGEL. And before I jump into a demo, I just want to give a shout out to Jet Ayers and his new series called The Attic. You definitely want to check this out. His first one was an interview with Mark Templeton, and it's really good. You should go watch it. And he also explains his whole setup in his house and all that. Now Jed's lucky because he has a cameraman and all that. I do my own stuff. So Jed, if you want to fund a cameraman for me, feel free. But anyway, check out The Attic. Definitely worth it. First one was with Mark Templeton, and really cool interview. As we all know, Mark's the old CEO of Citrix, but great guy and has been in the industry a long time. All right. So with that, I'm going to jump into a demo. But before I do, I just want to make sure I didn't miss a question that came in. So someone asked a great question. And they asked, Srinivas asked a great question. Does IGEL come with the latest and greatest Citrix receiver built in, or AKA the Citrix workspace? And the simple answer is, Srinivas, is yes, to a point. Okay. So one of the things I love about IGEL, and some of the other customers on the call may comment and level up the question a little bit, is one, IGEL has a release every quarter. And two, they're always working tightly with Citrix, VMware, WVD to ensure that they're using the latest and greatest client. So part of that is, yes, you get the latest protocol under the covers. And in some cases, they're actually helping enhance the protocol. So WVD is a great example of that. So hopefully I answered your question, Srinivas. I will, come back to this next question. So let me get through the demo. I think you say Gursav. So great question. And I'll come to your question next. All right. And I may phone a friend for that one. Cool. So a little shout out to my friend David Proud. So he's joined it from a 27-inch LG all-in-one converted to IGEL. So cool. So IGEL is very powerful. And David, if you don't mind, I may pull you on for a quick testimonial at the end if you don't object. And then Bill, I think you wanted to be pulled in. So I'm going to promote you to a panelist and introduce you in a little bit. So I'm promoting you to a panelist, and hopefully you get that. All right. There you go. So Bill's now a panelist. So before I jump in, I'd like to introduce Bill Sutton, who runs our services. So Bill, if you want to just do a quick shout out to the audience and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I'm Bill Sutton. I've been in the industry for about 22 years or so, working with various Citrix Platinum partners over the years, and landed at XenTegra a couple of years ago. And like Pete said, I run our consulting division. So I manage all the consultants and do some project management as needed, but I'm a consultant at heart. So I have a real interest in the new and upcoming things that we're seeing in the industry. And Pete's a great resource for that. And luckily I have him quickly addressable to me, but he's great in this forum, even better in this forum. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Bill. All right, so let's jump in and dive into a demo. So the first thing I want to show is I'll power this on, and just so folks understand, my setup's pretty cool. I just have a UMS running in a VMware workstation, so you can set this up in a little demo environment and get your head around how does IGEL work very quickly and very easily. And any device, you can do a temporary download for a 90-day license and just play with it and get your head around it. So if you're looking to POC it, we can certainly help you. All right, so I'm just making sure I didn't freeze. I paused there for a sec. All right, so now let's take a look. So we got our UMS, and before I dive into taking you guys through building out a system, let's take a look at our UMS server. So my UMS server, I'm running on Linux, and that's just a preference, right? The UMS server can run on Linux, and it can run on Windows. All right, I prefer Linux just because I find it's easier, and it's easier to maintain and get up into the cloud as well. So it's just pure preference for me. Now in the IGEL UMS, I'm gonna break these down a little bit. So you have your profiles. And again, this might be summary for some. I apologize, but I just want to make sure, I cover the gamut here. And in profiles, think of that. I like to align that to GPOs. So if you're an Active Directory administrator and you've ever played with GPOs, very similar concept, right? You have a bunch of settings and you can go down the tree and turn all this stuff on, and you can get pretty granular, right? And so that's one of the benefits of IGEL is there's a lot of great settings, and I'll give you some tips and tricks as we go through. And it looks like I might have to reboot my server. That's the only thing I don't like about pausing and unpausing the server. Firmware customization. So let's say I want to do wallpaper, the start menu, you go in there and do that. And there's pretty fun competitions for the customization aspects of IGEL every year. They sometimes do competitions. Device management, we'll jump into that. Mobile device management, that was an area that they were trying to get into the MDM space. And I would say that's on pause now. Shared workspaces. I get this question all the time. Hey, Pete, I want to put IGEL in a shared environment and be able to manage not only it in a shared environment, like a nursing station, things like that, but I also want to have it, profiles and et cetera, be assigned to Active Directory. And that's what shared workspaces enables. So you can do everything at a device level on the IGEL OS, but you can also do everything on the on the group in user and group level. So sorry, I'm trying to fix my PC because I keep blipping. And I'm just making sure. I got to turn off one thing really quick just so I'll come back to it in a second. All right, so the next thing, you got your views. I like views. You can do views based on device type, views based on a folder, views based on a name. So you can create different views. Like you can do show me everything that's unlicensed. You can say show me everything that hasn't checked in a while. There's different views you can create. So pretty cool. And files is where you would store anything under the sun. From custom partitions to wallpapers to your firmware upgrades, etc. And behind the scenes, the firmware upgrades are stored there too. Firmware upgrades, that's where you can import or download any net new firmware upgrades. So you can see I have 240 here. That's the latest and greatest. And you can just right click and go check for updates, or you can import the update. Either one, pick your poison. If your proxy doesn't allow it, you can just import them in and then drag and drop it on the endpoint device. All right. And then finally, under administration, I won't go through everything, but I just like to show this so you guys understand it. So under licensing, that's in a big area that they've changed, especially if you've been a customer since 4X, 5X, etc. Now everything's done through the central server online, but you can still import things manually if you have to. All right. So you don't have to necessarily do online. So you can do a test connection, and you can see I have my 2 licenses here that are sitting up in the IGEL cloud, and I tie my server to it, and I can do what's called automatic license deployment. All right. And so that's key when you do licensing for your endpoint. Another thing I like to show is this right here, default directory rules. So you can come up with default directory rules. So you can say, hey, when a device checks in, put it in this folder. So it might be network based, it might be name based, it might be device type based, because you might have different profiles for different device types. And so you can do that. A lot of great settings here. I'll go through the settings later on a little bit deeper, but I just like to give the grand tour before I jump in. All right, so what I'm going to do, just to be safe, I'm going to reboot my guest, because I always pause it. I don't know how long I've had it paused for. I think it's been paused for like a week. I'll let that reboot. All right, next up, what I want to show is I'm going to show, getting this new Raspberry Pi up and running. All right. And the reason why, I just pulled it out of the box and I haven't done anything to it yet. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you really quickly. So I use a really cool tool. So the first thing I do is here, I'll show everybody. And it's this thing called a Magwell USB capture device. So if you're ever interested in doing like capturing and things like that, if you're a gamer, you probably already know about this, but and you plug it in, it's USB 2 based. And then I plug in the HDMI port so you can see. So pretty cool. And then I plug in my little HDMI port. So now on the side of this, you'll see, and it's hard to see in this little thing here, but you'll see that it has 2 mini USB ports. So there's dual monitor built into this thing. All right. Now, one of the things I'll give you is when you buy this, make sure you buy the cable. So do an mini HDMI. So this to regular HDMI. All right. So I'm going to plug this into HDMI 1. And there we go. And I'm going to get the power plug here. And of course, it fell on the floor. Be right back. All right, back. All right, so we're going to plug this guy in. And we're going to put our USB keyboard in so we can get to it. All right, now what I do to capture is I use what's called OBS Studio. And OBS Studio is just a little, a little app I found. It does the great capturing. You can do other cool things with it. And this will allow me to see how this thing boots up. And I am letting this thing come up. My machine is not being very forgiving right now. All right. So here we are. We got our device here, and we're gonna see now. One of the things I didn't do is I kept the network off. Now, one of the cool things that Jeff Kahlberg told me when he called me is he said, hey, you know, one of the cool things they're working on is kind of auto updating of the IGEL device. All right, so now I'm going to plug in the network, and we're going to see hopefully this thing light up, and it's going to connect to the LAN, and it's going to say, hey, there's an update. All right, and he strongly advised me that I should update this thing. So I'm going to give this thing an update if I can. It's not letting me. All right, hold on. All right, not letting me get an update. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know. I get this blip every once a day. So so now you can see that this thing is auto updating. So this is something that again, I can't speak for IGEL, but there's something that they're working on behind the scenes to allow auto update if you want to, kind of like Windows Update, right? I think someone made a comment earlier about the UD Pocket being old. That's a big issue, right? If you have a UD Pocket, and if for some reason you haven't connected to a management server, it doesn't get auto updated. You have to kind of manually update it. So this is going to go and do a firmware update, and this will it will update the firmware and we'll reboot. And then David, that's what Jeff told me about as well. So he said I can just exit out of it and fix it. So this is going to do a firmware update. So if you're testing this device, beware, it will sometimes auto update. And if I send you a device, make sure you keep an eye on this. All right. All right. So as that updates, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to jump over to my management server and show a couple. There was a question earlier around the management plane in Citrix. So just give me a second. I'll log in. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to log in and let's see. I might have to turn off my camera because the machine is not jiving with this stream. All right, that's not good. All right, that's not. All right, so bear with me. Sorry about that. All right, so this thing is going to continue to run the update, and as it runs the update, we will, we'll let that run. Now, one of the other things that Jeff told me is that it's behind the scenes. It looks like an IGEL device, feels like an IGEL device, but there's still some feature functionality that's not going to be built in. So just be aware of that if you're going to test this out. Now, from a Citrix, VMware, WVD perspective, it's very robust. So just be mindful of that. And that'll be, when they always do with the OS and the release notes. All right, so this is rebooting. And again, I just pulled this thing out of the box. So, so you'll see, how this operates. And you can see just very basic UI. And here I can full screen it. All right. So, and the boot code was updated, and hit cancel on that. And now we're ready to go. Now, for those who have never seen IGEL, you can see that the out-of-the-box experience includes a wizard, and you can go through this wizard. But one of the steps you'll notice is right here is the ICG agent setup. And that's how you can connect to the Igil Cloud Gateway. Now, someone asked, hey, how secure is the Igil Cloud Gateway? Well, it's obviously going to be as secure as your edges, but I would argue it's very secure. Okay. And the reason why is because it's based it's SSL based, and it's outbound only once for the connection, and you can front end it or with a firewall. You can front end it with a NetScaler. So there's different ways to quote unquote secure it, but the device itself isn't holding any data. It is just essentially a glorified proxy, if you will. So hopefully, and if you need me to, Gustav, let me know if you want me to dig up some good documentation on that. But good question. All right, and then so let's jump back into my management server. So we'll come back to this in a second. Hopefully we got it back up. And go there. There we go. All right, now let's log in and bring up my UMS. Again, I'm running mine on Linux, just preference. One of the reasons why I like Linux is because, up in Azure, it's a lot cheaper to run, and you can, I just find it's easier to get up and run. And to be frank, it's just a matter of preference. But you can run it in Windows. You can backend it with pretty much any database. And if you go to Igil's documentation, it tells you all the databases that are supported. Pretty robust list. And all the OSs that are supported. So again, I'm running, Linux here, and Ubuntu, I think it's 18.01, I believe. And just matter of preference. That's all. So you can see my UMS is going to launch up, and we're going to go and bring this device online. So fingers crossed. Again, no rehearsal, no testing, no anything. That's the fun of this session, is I don't practice or do anything. Now, one of the things we'll just take a look at really quick while we're waiting is what network is this on, because I can slim it down and get a little faster. So we'll go details. So it's the 10.12.113. All right, so 12.113. I can deal with that. Now, if you guys can, I'll turn my camera back on when I'm back to PowerPoint. But behind me, I have an Igil device running on a Nook, like a compute stick, and it's pretty cool. And that's the TV that's behind me. Now, all right, so we got our UMS here. You can see here's that compute stick behind me, and you can see here's the little icon here that I can search for. Now, when you're pulling devices in, you can auto register them. You can, there's different ways to get devices in. So I like showing it this way so you can see how, flexible Idril is. And I'll just do a range really quick, and we can do a scan, and we'll see if we can find our new Raspberry Pi device. And there we go. So here's our Igil device. You can see that it's not. So if I can do just like select new ones. So if I had a list of like 200 and I do select new ones, it's going to pull in anything that hasn't registered with the UMS server. Now, again, I can auto register. There's some tweaking you have to do to your DNS. So that's another option. You can have it embedded in when you build the OS, things like that. Well, not on the Raspberry Pi yet, but if you were going to do a conversion, you could do that too. So a lot of different ways you can get it to register with the UMS server. I just like showing this way because it shows how easy it is to pull it in. So we're gonna hit OK and bring this device under management. Now, what I'll do is while that's doing that, we'll hop back over and we'll see this hopefully pop and get a notification that it's under management. But I just realized I have to license it as well. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we will bring this, we'll license it. So I'm going to give it a license. I don't have auto licensing turned on. So we'll give it a license and hit yes. And we'll finish. And then what we'll do is we will hop back to the thing, and you can see that it's got its new license. And I'm going to hit OK. Whoop. Got two keyboards going here. Hit OK. And it's going to go through a quick reboot and bring it under the management server. So, imagine in the wild, you had 5, 10, 20 of these. You can do this relatively quickly. So I can't say the customer name, but personally, I help a customer of mine, and he'll set them up in a lab in his office down in Miami, and he'll say, "Hey Pete, I got 30 of these ready to go." I pull them into the management server, and I get them all configured for him, and then he powers them off, puts them in a box, ships them to the location that he wants to get them set up in. So it just shows you how easy it is once you can get these things properly communicating with the management server. All right, so we are going to bring this thing under management, and for some reason it's doing a quick update again, but I think this is the issue I was having with the NTP, I think, David, right? But if I do a quick refresh in my management server, we'll see that it should be licensed. And I don't know why it's not pulling the license. But what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick 10-minute break because we're coming to the top of the hour. And we'll let this thing catch up with itself. And I will get us up and running. So let's do this while this thing finishes this final update. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and we will come back here at 3:10, or actually 3:05, because we'll say 3:10. Give it 15, because my office is about 1,000,000 degrees right now, and need to open my door and air it out, or I'm gonna fall over of heat exhaustion. So let's take a quick 10-minute break, and then we will come back here at 3:10, and I will continue configuring this device and show you an example of how we can get it to work with Citrix. And I'm an idiot. I just realized I have the wrong time in here. I'm like on mountain time, I guess, but I meant 5:10, so 10 minutes past the hour, wherever you are. So I apologize for that. I just sitting here looking at it, and I'm like, huh. All right, we're gonna jump in about 2 minutes or so. We'll jump back in and we'll continue down our journey of demoing the new Igil ARM-based device from N Computing. All right, as we get ready to jump back in, David, great insight. So he made a great point. Officially, the Igil device is a Pi 4 gig. All right, and it doesn't work technically on the 8 gigabit yet. We'll just leave it as that. And then he said officially it only works on the 2 gig from N Computing, and he jokingly said, "Yes, I broke the warranty the warranty seal." So good on you, David. Thanks for that tip. All right, so let's jump in and take a look. So we got our device up and connected to our UMS server, and you can see here it is. So I what I always do is I create a depot folder, and I just do a couple small policies just to get myself ready to go, so I can have it primed and ready to go. And I did an NTP setting, DNS, and I enable the terminal just for troubleshooting, when I'm working with Igil on customer related issues. So you can see here it is. It's all connected, ready to go. Now you're saying, all right, well, that's not too sexy, Pete. Well, yeah, I know. So bear with me, and I'm gonna take you through a couple more things. But before I do, I just want to give a couple tips and tricks from my point of view, and then David and David and Dave, if you have any tips, please feel free to throw some out there as well. And if you guys want me to, I don't mind pulling you in at the very end to give a couple insights into your testing as well. One little call out before I jump in is if you're not part of the Igil community, please join it. Doug Brown runs it, and a lot of the guys that are commenting here today are part of that community, myself included. I use it every day pretty much, but here's a link. I definitely encourage you to join it. It's great because not only are you going to get insight on Igil, but you're going to get insight from industry leaders out there today that are doing EUC, either in healthcare, finance, partners, etc. So definitely check out the Igil community. All right, so let's take a look. So little tip I like to do, and this is a demo environment, but in a real environment, I always have a dev folder, I have a test folder, and then I have a production folder. Now, one of the things you'll notice that is I bundle my profiles into various buckets. And you can see, I was taught by one of the longtime IGEL employees, a guy named Jeff Kahlberg, that you bundle your profiles into separate settings. And the reason why is because, you can see here, I got NTP and shadowing, I enable my terminal, and I enable my DNS. Now, just a quick thing, while we were on the break, I was troubleshooting an issue with my endpoint where the network wasn't connecting. All I had to do is drag out the DNS one and say, oh yeah, it's a problem with that profile. I tweaked it and boom, I fixed it. So it allows for troubleshooting a lot easier if you compartmentalize the settings. All right, so I'll open up a couple just as an example here. So if I go to edit configuration, you can see that, there's a lot of different settings here. So just like a GPO, you can get lost in the settings, and the joke is follow the blue, right? So follow the blue, and you can see all the settings that are turned on and off, and you can see that IGEL does a lot. And one of the tips I always give new admins is just go up and down and take a look at the settings. So if you're looking at Active Directory, you can search here. You can do a search. So for example, I was playing with Zoom the other day. I could do a search for Zoom and see what's in there for Zoom settings. And then I can go and click on anything related to Zoom. All right. But I always tell people, like, just click through and go and see, take an hour and just click on each node just so you can understand what each profile, section does. And then you got to come up with a strategy on how you're going to target and build out your endpoint devices. So, you can go in and turn the taskbar on and off. You can see in this case, I'm going to allow login to my Active Directory. I have shared workspaces enabled. And, I can go in and do configurations like that, time and date, etc. All right. From a Citrix point of view, and here, I'll open up my Citrix profile here. Just going to find one. There we go. And if I go to a Citrix profile as an example, and that was an example that someone asked about earlier, is yes, IGEL is great because they're constantly updating the OS, and they're always updating the Citrix Workspace client built within the OS. So if I go into the Citrix node, and you can see here's all the session-based scenarios that IGEL supports. Now, each of these shims, I call it a shim, or a section is what's called a partition within the operating system. So think of a partition as like an install, right? And again, the operating system is read-only. So it's very secured and very controllable from a central management server. All right, now I can take a look at the Citrix session. So I can go in here and say, hey, what version of the client do I want to allow to be put on the endpoint? And you can see here, I only have 1810, 1910, and 1912. And you're probably going, well, what the heck, Pete? So if I go cancel on this, I can check one thing because I haven't checked this in a while and I'm curious. So you can see I have all these different versions of the profile. So I can go and say, you know what, I'm going to go with this version here because that's the latest and greatest. And I'll hit save, and that's going to save the profile. Now, when I open up the profile, I'll be able to see the latest version that's supported in 04242. So if I go back to my session and I go to Citrix and I go to the Citrix client selection, you're going to notice now that it's 1210 is the client. All right. So again, one of the things you'll learn with IGEL is they always support the current -2. So they got 1210, 1209, and 1912. Now, a tip I always give my customers is, you don't have to upgrade every time. Look at the release notes and say, do I need that update? Am I waiting for that update? You can also look at the Citrix release notes of the Linux client to see if there's anything in there that's of interest. And I always recommend that before just willy-nilly upgrading your enterprise. All right. So I always keep it the default just because, hey, I like to live on the edge. Now you'll notice here in my storefront, I'm configuring it for Citrix authentication mechanism. So maybe I'm doing smart card or two-factor authentication. I might do dual monitor. There's the control bar for the Citrix session. And you can go and say, all right, well, how's my storefront set up? And I can see, here's my storefront set up here. Here's my login scenario. Here's my appearance, et cetera. So I can go through and set up the scenario for Citrix to have pass-through authentication with Active Directory. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to change that profile. So just a lot of different examples. So if you have any questions on profiles, please ask. All right. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss any comments, questions. All right. Now, one of the things that I'll do now is, this isn't too great. So let's do something a little bit and show you the power of the management with Igil. So what I'm going to do is you'll notice that at each folder, I have profiles applied at each folder. So you can do a profile on the device. You can do a profile at the folder level. And if I had shared workspaces turned on, I could also do a profile at a group or a user. And so you can see there at different layers here, I got different profiles. All right. And you can, and I'll show the different examples as I, bring it into control. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this into my background bucket, and we're going to go and we're going to hit now. And I'm going to try to be fast about this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go here and we're going to full screen this thing. And you can see now we're going to bring a background and get this thing to look all nice and have a little XenTegra flair to it. All right, so we going to hopefully get this the profile to push down. And what I'll do is I will double check the settings again really quickly. Hold on. And one of the things I like to do is I'll check and see. It says it got applied, but for some reason it didn't pull down the wallpaper. So I'll do one other little push here, and just to make sure. And this might be a little flare to, living on the edge here and testing a beta device. So I'll just do, hey, I'm going to try to make sure that everything's pushed down. So settings to UMS device, and we will click on my window here. And where is the full screen? There it is. And we will try one more time. All right, so I'm been told that apparently wallpapers isn't working on this beta. So just bear with me on this one. But one of the things you'll notice is I switched out the icon, and I do this just as a fun little gimmick, is I make it look like a Windows menu, and I kind of start having a little fun with making it look and feel like Windows. Now, the next thing I'll do is I will, I'm going to drag and drop it into a lockdown. So one of the things I like to show is the ability to control the experience with Igil. So what I'll do is I'm going to drag this into the next bucket and hit that and go now. And then we'll jump back over here and we'll get a pop-up in a second. My internet's been a little slow lately, and we're going to have it pull down the policy, and it's going to configure it and lock it down even further. Now, why would you do this? Well, let's say you wanted to have just an icon for Citrix, or you wanted to auto launch Citrix, and that's all you wanted them to do. It's a great scenario to be able to lock down the endpoint to control the user experience. Now, you'll notice that on my device, I have the terminal, and I don't recommend doing this in production, by the way, but the terminal is great if you need to troubleshoot. And here's why. All right. And if you double click on this, it's, you can access root and user. So that's why you don't want to have the terminal. So you only put the terminal on as a troubleshooting mechanism. I keep it on just to do, when I show and tell, to do demos and stuff like that. But you can see that, hey, this is a very locked down endpoint now. I have shutdown and reboot. Those are my only options. And you're going, well, I can't really do anything with that, Pete. What the heck? So what we're going to do now is, a little fun. And we're going to go in and drag and drop this into the browser. And I just got to make sure do I have a browser example? Well, what we'll do is we will go and take a look at a browser profile. So let's find one here, because I got so many profiles. And we'll take a look at the Chromium browser. All right. So let's take a look at our Chromium profile. Make sure I'm not going to step on mud really quick. And we're going to go into sessions, and you can see there's two browser types now within Firefox and or within the IGEL OS. There's Firefox and the Chromium browser. Now, the common question I get is, can I install Chrome, actual Google Chrome, yeah, you can. But at the end of the day, the Chromium browser is actually pretty darn good. But if you have a preference and you want to use the Chrome browser, you can. It's in what's called a custom partition. And so you can see you can do a lot of settings here on the Chromium browser. And you can go in and lock it down pretty well. Same with Firefox. So if I do Firefox Global, you can go and lock down the Firefox browser. So it's a matter of preference now if you want Chrome or if you want Firefox. All right. And so one of the things that we'll have to look at is and I might step in mud here, by the way, because David raises a good point. I gotta see what firmware is on this beast, because if the firmware doesn't match, I might step in a little mud here. And this is what Jeff warned me about. So it's 10.11.01 RC1. Okay. So what I might do is I'm gonna live safely here and find my browser one, and we'll do Firefox. And all right, so and we'll actually sync it to that version. There we go. Nice call, David. Thank you. Because like I said, this is still in beta, and they're still finalizing all the profile options. So you can see no Chromium yet, so we'll stick with the global browser. And you can see a lot of lockdown here. And you can do browser sessions, you can do the icon, etc. So we're gonna save this. We're gonna go and I'm gonna click on the folder here, and I'm gonna drag and drop this onto my lockdown folder because I know that's where my device is right now. And we'll assign a browser to the lockdown folder if it will let me. Come on, there we go. All right, and we'll go now and hit OK, and we will jump back to our device, and we will apply the browser. All right, so that's, I'm just trying to show you the flexibility of, the UMS system and the ability to manage the endpoint. So, apply this to the normal devices that you have now with Igil, apply this to some of the other functionality out there with Igil today. All right, now the final thing I want to do is I want to go in and apply a Citrix policy. All right, and so what I'm going to do is just to be safe, I'm going to go on my Citrix example. I just got to find which one I want to use. I always forget which one. And let's see, which one did I do? Demo system store file. All right, so I'm going to do the Citrix browser scenario, I think. And let's see what sessions we got going on here. All right, we got global options. I didn't do that. Okay. We're going to do our Citrix. I gotta find which one I want to use. I'll do the browser scenario, but I'm going to drop the config down to the version so I don't step in mud again. And hit save. And edit my configuration. And you can see, all right, now I got my Citrix client here, and we're gonna go and we're gonna pick the default, which is 2010. And we're gonna look at our different options here. But what I want to do is I'm going to turn on the Chromium browser, and I am going to connect to a backend scenario using Citrix Cloud. So what I'll do is I will just do a general. I'll do a specific page, and I just want to make sure I get my URL correct. All right. So I'm going to put the proper URL. All right, and I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to put this this test onto my device. Now I kept it basic for right now on purpose, but we'll have a little fun in a little bit, so bear with me. All right, so we're gonna let that apply, and we should see a browser pop up in a second, or not. All right, I'm gonna give this guy a reboot just in case, because I'm superstitious. And while we're waiting, I want to show you guys one other thing. So one of the things you'll notice is behind me, I got my device here, and you can see that, I have a bunch of different scenarios. So yes, Igil supports WBD. Yes, it supports VMware. So you have a lot of different options when it comes to connecting to various cloud platforms in the ecosystem. Now, one of the tips is as you test the Raspberry Pi, is it's still in beta, and you need to make sure that you align the version with the profile version with the profile with the endpoint that you're working off of, just because, as you can see, there's very slim options right now from a session point of view. All right, and so you can see the Chromium Browser is here, and what we'll do is we're going to go and do a configuration here. We'll do start menu, and we'll auto start it, and we'll hit save, and we'll say now, and let's see if it gets pushed down on the next shuffle here. So there we go, and say not now. I am running RC2, and there we go. All right, now when I launch this browser, it's going to bring me to a Citrix workspace front end. So if I right click and go execute, and there we go. And you're going to see that, the flexibility that you have with Igil is very cool, because you can do this scenario. You can do, the icon scenario where you have icons on the desktop. You can do kind of a blend. You can do a lockdown kiosk scenario. So we can play with that in a second. And you can see that it does work with, someone asked me about MFA. So you can see that, here's my login for, for my XenTegra portal here. And if I log in, you can see that I have full MFA built in to my login screen. All right. And this is going to use Azure AD and two-factor authentication. So I'll get a thing on my watch in a second. And I hit approve, and it's going to log me in. So you can have two-factor authentication workflows built in with Citrix Cloud and Igil. Same goes for WBD. And as they build out the profile, same will go for a lot of the other profiles that they'll build in. So you can see right now in the beta, very limited sessions right now, but I imagine they'll start building out the various options as we get deeper into the release. Now, a couple of things I like to show. I personally like the browser option because you can kiosk this thing. So for example, I can go in general. You can say, things like content, block pop-ups, block, load images automatically, set up the language, create the temp folder. You can set up a proxy. You can go in and say, you know what, clear browsing history on browsing data, clear, all the stuff that's associated with it, right? So you can make this basically a dumb browser. You can even turn on incognito mode if you want to. So you can enable and disable. You can set do not track, which anything that's on by default, you can see, right? So from a security perspective, you can enable the phishing and malware protection. You can enable encryption. So there's a lot of flexibility. So I do like the browser because I can do this. I can go and enable kiosk mode, start maximized. And then you notice that down here, I also said auto start. All right. So if I save and I say send to the device and I jump back to my device, I can now have this thing auto start and just be a kiosk mode machine. And I like this model and you can do this for regular storefront or workspace, so up to you. But I just personally like this because then it uses the client underneath, and it allows you to just make this a very dumb experience for your end users. Now, I'm not calling your users dumb, but at the end of the day, if we can make this nice and simple, and they just have to click on an icon and that's it, or the desktop auto launches, then that's a beautiful thing. So we'll let this thing boot up one more time, and we'll take you through and just show you the kiosk mode. But I personally like this because it's just a clean way to give the users a good experience. Now, as you saw in the profile, yeah, I can go and set up, I can set up storefront mode. I can set up, self-service. So you can have the icons on the desktop. They double click on it. Each has its pros and cons, right? Some people like having the icons on the desktops and making it look like Windows. Some people like the web browser option. So, pick your poison and play around and find a use case that works for you. Do some UAT testing, and get a feel for your users. Now, there's a lot of things you can do from security. If you have any security questions on how to auto log off, lock it down, etc., let me know. I have a lot of profile examples that I can share with you personally, and get them out there for you so you can see ways to lock it down. And again, the community is great for that as well. I'm gonna say not now, and you can see, boom, I'm ready to log in, and that's it. So, if I close this instance, you can see that it's fully enabled, and it should auto launch. I don't know why it's not. Maybe that's we'll call it a feature of the beta, but you should have it be able to auto launch and be in a windowed scenario. So again, you can see very flexible from the central management server. All right, so before we jump off, I want to do one final round of updates. And so I'm going to exit this full screen really quick if I couldn't get over there. Oh, man. I just froze. There we go. All right. I don't know what happened there, but I am back. A little blip there. All right. So what I want to do before we exit out today is two things. One, just kind of highlight a couple of new things that have happened in the latest update. And two, take any final questions. Now, one thing, as we saw, from a management point of view, the version right now for the Raspberry Pi 4 is 11.01.100. So, you have to be mindful that if you are going to test it in your environments, again, join the community because there's a lot of great folks that are testing it there as well and have some good insight into where not to step. And shout out to the Daves for giving me heads ups on some of the areas to watch out for. Because again, I didn't practice, and I purposely do that because I don't want to make this seem scripted and make it seem a little bit more real for you guys. Again, if you have any questions on management, please ask. And as I said, every month I do run a conversion workshop. So if you want to see a little bit more in depth some of the other features that we have in the IGEL OS, please join me monthly, and I go and convert various device types that I have with me. But let's talk about 11.04.240, which is the latest version, which we're about to have a new version anytime soon now. So keep an eye out for that. But if you haven't already, definitely check out the documentation on IGEL, because, you know, at the end of the day, they do a great job, and they're always documenting the release notes for every release. So it's a great way to just see, hey, what's changed in the operating system, and do I need to update? And I would say that if you're not on the 04 240 release yet, you probably want to get to that. All right. And the reason why is there was a lot of great functionality updates. So the first thing is they did update the architecture. And, you know, it is running the latest, well, not latest, but the long time supported guarantee version of Ubuntu. So 18.04, and the kernel is 5.4. So that allows different chipsets in when you do conversions, different hardware, etc. It's fairly robust. I don't want to say it supports everything, but it does a pretty darn good job when you do an x86 conversion. Unified communications. I just had a great conversation with a customer today about this, actually. And what we talked about was, you know, Zoom and the support for Zoom. And they had tried, I think, IGEL over a year ago, and they're like, oh, Zoom was horrible. I said, well, yeah, because they didn't have the proper stuff built in. You'd have to do it on the side. And so now that it's fully baked in, you know, Zoom, Teams, Cisco, et cetera, are very well supported now from a Citrix perspective, as well as the VMware Horizon Client perspective. And then also, let's not forget WVD. So there was a great Zoom update to WVD. And so, you know, IGEL, this is an area where they are constantly trying to innovate and continue to move forward with WVD. If you don't know what Microsoft WVD is, please reach out and I can give you guys information on that as well. And then, you know, you can check out the new IGEL OS. And someone asked earlier, I apologize, I forget who, but someone asked, hey, you know, what version do they run? And typically they're running at least as close to the latest as they can, and then -2. So they always have 3 versions on the endpoint OS, so that way you can fall back if you need to. Now, the reality here is simple. You know, IGEL does a great job at updating, but they're still beholden to Citrix and VMware and some of the other vendors. So if they don't support it in the Linux version, then, you know, IGEL can't wave a magic wand and magically support it. So sometimes it's not IGEL's fault. It's sometimes the agent that they're working with's fault. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Because there's a lot of cool things that IGEL does, but sometimes they don't control the client that they work with. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But I'll say this, the Linux support has come a long way on the Citrix side. That said, WVD, that's another big area of support with IGEL. I'll say this, they were the first Linux-based agent for WVD. They showed it on day 0 when they launched it at Ignite in 2019. And as I said earlier, there's Zoom support as well, all this other great stuff on the screen. And then Horizon, they're constantly updating the Horizon client. And I think there's a test firmware up there with a newer version, but this is the of record version right now. And you can also see some of the unified communications. Now, the other big thing they added in 200, and actually might be in the release prior to that, was Chromium support, because a lot of folks said, hey, I don't like Firefox. And I'm with you there. But anyway, the Chromium browser is now embedded into the profiles. And you can see that it is supported on the RX 420, the Raspberry Pi. And you can see they're constantly trying to improve the enhancements around the Chromium browser. And as far as other updates are concerned, there's a lot of great updates. And you can see that, you know, if you go to the IGEL Ready program, you can see there's a lot of great features within that program. Everything from, you know, Teradici to printer logic to Cisco JVDI. A lot of great stuff that they're always trying to keep maintained. And so what I always recommend to my customers is make sure you take a look at the release notes, so you can have an understanding of what's been updated. Now, from a security perspective, you know, IGEL is always working on security, but one of the things they did build in 04240 is the ability for Aircom Shield. So, you know, the whole notion of browser isolation and you know, rendering a browser elsewhere. And so, you know, I'm not an Aircom customer nor will I claim to be an expert here, but this is a great feature, and it works out of the box now as part of Igil. So this is another great example of the flexibility and how fast Igil moves when adopting industry partners in part of their ready program. So you can see there's a lot of great partners in this program, and me personally, I had the privilege of working with Igil when I worked at Imprivata. I actually worked at Imprivata for well over a year running their plugin to Citrix and VMware. And so I saw both sides of the fence as far as being an integrator, a partner, and now I'm a partner. So you can see a lot of great partners. Lenovo's in this list. ClearCube is a couple favorites. PrinterLogic's another favorite. So you can see a lot of great partners that they continue to maintain and add to. Some examples, Imprivata. If you're in healthcare, it's more often than not that you're running Imprivata. And they have what's called fast user switching. They have, there's a lot of different functionalities that they've added in. And they have what's called Epic only mode. If you're a control up customer, guess what? They have control up now built into the Igil OS. So there's a lot of great functionalities and features into the Igil OS. Some other new features, the ability to auto start, out of memory notification, which I've actually seen that on this device behind me, and partition selection. So you can do different things when you build the OS onto an endpoint. So a lot of cool features. And then, of course, what's the new features without hardware support? And one of the big hardwares they added, aside from Lenovo and a couple others, is Apple. So, there's some latest and greatest Apple devices. So, yes, you can temporarily boot an x86 Apple, device to Igil OS. Why would you do that? I don't know. It's up to you. So, MacBook 2019 devices. All right, so final Q&A, question and answer before we exit out. Now, one of the things I always like to show just for fun is you can, from the UMS console, you can right click and factory reset any device. So if I go here and right click and we'll see if this works. I might stop and melt again, but hey, why not? It's a demo, and I can do what's called reset to factory defaults. And I'm going to go like that. And we'll click on this and see if we got it. We should see a pop up in a second. Or not. All right. Well, I'm going to step in mud again. But the other thing we can do, because I think my device, this thing's completely frozen. So that's interesting. All right, let's we'll hard reboot it. I think this thing completely froze. All right, but anyway, I do like to show that. And what that will do is that will reset the device back to factory settings out of the box. And then if you want, you can even delete it out of the UMS. I was going to say do the terminal as well. And, that way you can always reset and start again. It's a great way to, if you're doing some testing or you're just trying to make sure a profile works, et cetera. If you're doing lab testing, it's just a great way to make sure the device is set. You can also do escape on boot and reset the factory defaults on boot as well. That's another great way to get your device back to basics. That way you can kind of start from clean. And the cool thing is if you connect it to a UMS, it will remember that you already have a license. So with that, I'm going to say, if there's no questions, I'll say this. First off, thanks for joining me on my first, once a month this year. I'm going to try to run these once a month this year and highlight different vendors, each month. And next month, I am going to do a session on micro apps. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to do a session on Citrix micro apps. And I got the session working and all that. So that will be my next nuts, bolts, and beers. And then in March, I am going to do a MSIX overview and workshop with MSIX app attach. So if you don't know what those are, definitely join me in future months. Also, again, next week, on my webinar Wednesdays, I will have Jet Airs and possibly another guest joining me for my webinar Wednesdays to talk about all the goodness that IGEL is doing. And one final thing before we all exit out, I'm going to encourage it. And I don't have any way to get credit for this, but I don't care because I think it's worth it. You definitely want to make sure you sign up for IGEL Disrupt 2021. And the reason why is it's a great way to get up to date on what is IGEL doing in the industry, but also what is to come in the EUC industry in general. So I'm going to put a link to that. So definitely take time to register and sign up and get onto this virtual event. It's going to be a great event. They do a great job. Kudos to all the team over at IGEL for running this. It's a well-run event. All right, so last call for questions and answer. And with that, I'm going to say thanks for taking time out of your days and joining me on the end of your day. And some of you maybe towards the end of your day, because I'm at the end of my day, and some might be in Central Time, and some might be in Mountain Time, and some might be even past me. I don't know. But thanks for taking time out of your day and joining me. And if you joined me on the webinar earlier today, thanks for attending both events. And I look forward to seeing you on future events. And if you have time tomorrow, there's still some slots available at 10 a.m. Nutanix with Harvey Green and Meredith Dombos of Nutanix. Hands-on labs included. So if you want to check out Nutanix and get a little highlight into that, definitely check that out tomorrow. And all the great comments. I do agree. It's exciting to see in action. And yeah, I can't comment on the generic Pi, and I was hoping my friend Chris would join me today because he is my gatekeeper of anything IGEL and what I can and can't say. But I do agree, John. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with in the future. I think for now we'll see end computing be kind of the platform of choice with the Pi 4, and then over time they may come with a conversion kit to convert any Pi. I think you'll see ClearCube get in the fold at some point, et cetera. But for right now, end computing is the only supported device and the only supplier that can provide it on the back end. And you'd work with a partner like us to get the devices once they are finally GA'd. So what we saw today was a beta, and you'll see this continue to get better. And actually for a beta, it wasn't too bad. It gets the job done, and we'll see it expand into the various session-based scenarios. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for joining me today. And if you have any questions at all, or you want to dig deeper, definitely connect post-session, and you'll hear from members of my team. And if you want to dig deeper, feel free to set up some more time with myself or members of my team. And that's all I got today. And I want to say thanks for taking time out of your days and your afternoons. And I'll see y'all on future events. And a shout out to the Daves, Bill and Janice and Terry and a couple other folks out there. Thanks for joining, and have a great day.